Welcome back to the Daily Poem here on the Close Reads Podcast Network. I'm David Kern. Today's poem is by Christina Rossetti, the English poet who lived from 1830 to 1894. You've heard a poem or two of hers on the podcast over the last year or so. She wrote, for example, In the Bleak Midwinter, which of course was later set to music. And she is famous for her poem Goblin Market, which is long, but sometime maybe I will read on the podcast. The poem that I'm going to read today is the aptly titled, at least for our time of the year, Summer is Ended. It's not very long. It goes like this. To think that this meaningless thing was ever a rose, scentless, colourless. This. Will it ever be thus? Who knows? Thus with our bliss, if we wait till the close. Though we care not to wait for the end, there comes the end sooner, later, at last, which nothing can mar, nothing mend. An end locked fast, bent we cannot rebend. Summer is Ended was from an 1881 collection of poetry called A Pageant and Other Poems. And in doing a little research on the poem, I was reminded that the title is derived, comes from a passage in the book of Jeremiah. Jeremiah 8:20 goes like this: the harvest is past, the summer has ended, and we are not saved. And I was reading a little bit about Rossetti's life, and it was what I was reading was talking about how, and by this point, she was quite ill. You know, she had a recurring illness that would come back, and that was quite debilitating. And so she wrote a lot of poems at this time of her life that were pretty melancholy. This is, certainly one of them. And I imagine her being outside in a garden and picking up a rose, right? And holding it in her hand, a rose that's wilted, maybe red or a pink rose, holding it in her hand and looking at it and thinking to herself, it's amazing that this was ever something as beautiful, as luscious as a rose, something as profoundly intoxicating for some people. Roses are, people love their roses like they love their pets, but their shelf life, so to speak, is not very long. And so she's standing there and she's holding this rose and she's thinking, to think that this thing in my hand, this wilted thing in my hand, was once one of the most beautiful things in the world. And so there's a bit of nostalgia there. There's melancholy there. And so, I imagine she's thinking similarly about, maybe she had an amazing summer, the sort of summer that you remember for the rest of your life, full of bliss. And she's thinking, is this what it's going to be like? Is this what memory is? We're just holding the wilted version of whatever something was in the past. Sooner or later, everything has to end. We can't remake, we can't relive, we can't, rebend, as she puts it, the things that we experience. So is memory just a wilted rose? Is that all it is? The scent gone, everything just sort of faded away. It's just the soft petals in your hand, and you can look at them, but they're nothing like the real thing. She doesn't really give an answer to that, in my opinion. There's sort of one of the mysteries of the poem, and I feel like a lot of Rossetti's work is like this. But I like it for that. I like that that's an image I can just sort of sit with. I can spend my whole life thinking about whether that's the case. Is that all memory is? And if so, is that a bad thing? Those are things that I can think about till I die, and I probably never will really draw a conclusion. Or if I do, it'll probably change the next time I think about it. And I think that's what's great about this poem. So one more time, here is Christina Rossetti's Summer is Ended. To think that this meaningless thing was ever a rose, scentless, colourless, this. Will it ever be thus? Who knows? Thus with our bliss, if we wait till the close. Though we care not to wait for the end, there comes the end, sooner, later, at last, which nothing can mar, nothing mend, an end locked fast, bent, we cannot rebend. This has been the Daily Poem. Thanks so much for listening. I'll be back on Monday with another poem for you.